Now, I get a lot of questions about communion, worship, the differences in opinions among churches about how often we should celebrate communion. And so, in response to some of those questions, there's several of you that have asked me that question, I want to respond this way. One person says, "Hi, Dr. Betters, what does it mean to take the bread and the cup? Do Christians need to do so? And when?" Well, first of all, we do need to do so. It is a spiritual exercise of worship to receive the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. It is to be done corporately because we're around other believers. We should not celebrate private communions for the purpose of worship. We recognize there's a plan for those who are, for example, shut in or disabled or unable to come out. The elders of the church can go and minister to that person directly. But for the most part, it is a corporate sacrament. And it is the Christian Passover, but without the blood. Because we're in the new covenant where there is no shedding of blood. Paul makes it very clear in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Let me read this to you. "But in the following instructions I do not commend you, because when you come together, it is not for the better, but for the worse." In other words, he's immediately conditioning instructions on the Lord's Supper by saying there's a right way to come and there's a wrong way to come. And then he goes on and he sets the parameters, the standards. He says, "For in the first place, when you come together as a church," there's the publicity of it, "I hear that there are divisions among you." So you got a guy here on the right side of the sanctuary who's not speaking to a guy here on the left side of the sanctuary. You got conflict and division. And you got criticisms and complaints. And you got Republicans and Democrats. And fear is in the assembly. He says, then you come together and you want to celebrate the Lord's Supper? I don't think so. He says, and I believe it in part, there are divisions among you. For there must be factions among you in order that those who are genuine among you may be recognized. When you come together, it is not the Lord's Supper that you eat. For in eating, each one goes ahead with his own meal. One goes hungry. And on he goes. Read it in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. He's talking about coming to the Lord's Supper in an unworthy fashion. No self-examination. No confession of sin. You know, I like to fence the table. We put a fence around our table. Here's what we say to people. First of all, you must be a believer. It's not a sacrament for the unbeliever. So it's only for Christians. In the early first century church, when they celebrated the Lord's Supper, they sent everybody away who wasn't a Christian so that those who come to the table are only believers. So we fence the table. We say you must know Christ. You must trust in Him and in Him alone for your salvation. You can come to the table in an unworthy fashion. Paul would later in that passage say, and when you come in an unworthy fashion, you come condemning yourself. You come judging yourself. You come with a mark on you. You come in a dangerous way. He actually goes on and says, many have actually died because they came in an unworthy fashion. That was God's way of showing the early church, just like he did with Ananias and Sapphira with their lie about how much money they were giving. He comes to them and he says, this is serious business. You don't play with this. Now, nowhere in the passage does he tell us how often we are to come. The implication is that you come on the Lord's Day. There are churches that celebrate communion every week. I don't have a problem with that. There are churches that celebrate it once a year. I do have a problem with that. Because he wants us to come together to take this sacrament in order to remind us that our salvation was not free. Oh, it's free to us, but it cost Jesus his life. Jesus is the Passover lamb. He is the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. He is the one upon whom our souls must sprinkle the blood. He is the Christian Passover, the bloodless sacrifice. And we must come together. We examine ourselves. Maybe I need to go over to that guy on the other side of the sanctuary and sit down with him, commit myself to doing everything in my power to reconciling with him, because a conflict between us as brothers infects the whole body. And that's the kind of confessions we need to make. That's the stuff that revivals are made out of. I like to say we keep current with each other. If you have conflict with somebody that's not in the church, you resolve to resolve it to the best of your ability, to the best that you know how to do. You pray for your enemies. You pray for those who despitefully use you. It's hard. That's hard work. That's difficult work. It might take me 2, 3, 4 communions to really get the nerve to make that kind of commitment. So we need the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. We need it often. I'm not saying it has to be every week, but it needs to be at least once a month or even twice a month, something along that line. But I respect those who want to celebrate it every week. That's fine.
Hello, my name is Danielle Cantler, team member here at MARKINC Ministries. Thank you so much for your continued support of this video series. Ask Dr. Betters is not meant to be a substitute for professional counseling, but instead is designed to extract the biblical principles around the questions being asked. We encourage you to seek professional counseling if needed. Professional counselors are ready to assist you at Anchored Hope Biblical Counseling. See the links below for more information on Anchored Hope and all of the free resources we offer here at MARKINC Ministries. Thank you for watching and welcome to the MARKINC family.